Hi everyone, in today's video of Accelerated Chess Dragon, we're going to be looking at a game that was played between Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer. Now, this was played in the 1972 World Chess Championship match, and it was played in Reykjavik, Iceland, and this is the fifth game, although only 4 games were played, and let me explain how that happened. So, we have Fischer and Spassky playing their first game, and Spassky wins from a poison pawn trap that Fischer fell for, and even though Fischer lost, he blamed the audience for his failure, and also the cameras. So, after he complained to FIDE, of course, that he wanted changes on how the game should be laid out. And FIDE, of course, they can't adjust to all of this immediately, but after some time, they decided to finally satisfy all of Fischer's conditions, except one where they would keep a camera. However, this didn't really bug Fischer too much because the camera didn't really make any noises. And they were playing behind the stage, in like a game room behind the stage. So this was okay for Fischer, and he decided to oblige to this. Although he actually was actually that mad at FIDE that he didn't come to the second game until FIDE actually met all of his conditions, and they did. And now Fischer is willing to play the next games. So he won the third game. And this was also a major turning point. It showed people that the Russians were not the most superior chess players. And he drew the fourth game, so now we have 2.5 to 1.5 in Spassky's favor. But this is game 5, and get ready for this. So, Spassky on the white end, he opens with d4. Fischer with black plays knight f6. Now Spassky plays c4, and Fischer replies with e6. So, knight c3, and now Fischer plays a Nimzo-Indian with bishop to b4. Knight to f3, and now c5. e3, knight to c6, bishop to d3, and now an exchange on c3. So this is kind of like a Rubinstein-Hübner variation of the Nimzo-Indian, and now d6 by Fischer. e4, and now e5. So what Fischer is trying to do is he's trying to maybe make this pawn take on e5, maybe on c5, because then it would separate itself from these c pawns, and those c pawns are doubled, meaning they're weaknesses, and this a pawn is isolated, meaning it's a weakness. So Fischer is just trying to create as many weaknesses in Spassky's position as possible. So now Spassky forges ahead with d5. He doesn't, of course, want any weaknesses to be created, and he's attacking Fischer's knight. And Fischer moves his knight to e7. And now knight to h4 by Spassky. So what this move is doing is it's maybe trying to get this knight into f5 eventually, not right now, but eventually. And Fischer just plays a prophylactic move. He plays h6, just waiting what Spassky could do. And now knight to g6, or sorry, f4 by Spassky. And now knight to g6. So Fischer challenges Spassky's knight. And he's trying to make Spassky take on g6, and then, then he would have an open f-file. Spassky would also have an open f-file, and he's trying to see how they can contest that way. So knight takes g6, f takes g6, f takes e5, d takes e5, and now Spassky plays bishop to e3, attacking the c5 pawn, and here Fischer plays b6, reinforcing it. And now both sides castle, and here a4 by Spassky. Now, this a4 move is just trying to maybe undermine Fischer's pawns by playing a5 and then trying to either take, forcing maybe queen takes b6 if the rook is not defended by then, or it could, if Spassky for some reason played Fischer for some reason played b takes a5, then there is this bishop takes c5 move, and then Fischer's position would start to crumble a bit. So instead of going through all of this, Fischer plays a5. This does do good, but it also does bad. It creates a backwards b6 pawn, and also it weakens the b5 square. And Spassky plays rook to b1, seemingly trying to put the rook on b5, as if you have any piece blockading a backwards pawn, then that's usually a good thing. And here, Fischer just plays bishop to b5 square. And now rook to b2 by Spassky, trying to maybe shift the rook over to the b file, or the f file. And now rook to b8 by Fischer, he's just reinforcing this pawn. And now rook b to f2 by Spassky. So now he is trying to contest the file like how Fischer's f8 rook is. And here Fischer plays queen e7. You cannot move this knight right away, so if Fischer can just move his queen first and then move the knight, then that'll be good. Bishop c2. You can see that Spassky's bishop doesn't really have much scope, and it's not very easy to activate it. You might need to find some diagonal like this d1 h5 diagonal and try to find one square there where you can start activating it. And now g5 by Fischer. This is trying to maybe establish an outpost on the f4 square by playing knight h5 and knight f4. And Fischer does actually have this happen to him. So bishop to d2, again, Spassky doesn't really know what he should do, so he's just waiting. And now queen e8. You might be thinking, why queen e8? Because Fischer literally just played queen e7. Why is he going back? Well, Fischer has a plan. He's trying to play queen to g6, and then play knight to h5, and then knight to f4, and then he's going to have a very promising position. So now, bishop to e1 by Spassky. Again, he's just waiting. He's maybe trying to find a way to get this bishop to a good square, such as g3. Queen to g6, and now queen to d3, as the e4 pawn was attacked a bit. And now Fischer gets what he wanted, knight h5, and after a series of rook exchanges, bishop to d1 by Spassky. So if Spassky can eliminate this knight on h5, and then maybe even activate his dark square bishop, then he actually might have some compensation. However, Fischer, of course, is not going to allow any of this, so he plays knight f4, getting his knight into the square really wants to go to. And the next move by Spassky is simply a blunder. Spassky could play many things. He could play queen to e3, maybe queen to f3, maybe queen to b1. But the move Spassky plays is just unacceptable. And he plays queen to c2. And if you were Fischer, how would you simply win the game here? So I encourage you to pause the video and try to win the game here as Fischer. Okay, so I hope you've got enough time to think, and the move that Fischer played that wins is bishop takes a4. Now, bishop takes a4 is a deflection. It's trying to deflect this queen from the defense of this e4 pawn, and you'll see how that plays an important role. Let's say that queen takes a4 was played. Let's say Spassky doesn't see why queen takes a4 is bad. Then Fischer has this queen takes e4 move, and now it's simply lost. Why? Because there's an attack on g2 and also an attack on e1, and you can't defend both of these at once. If you move the king, if you want to move the king, then you have to move it to f2, but that isn't any good because after knight d3 check, there's king g3, queen h4 check, king f3, and you don't even need to take the bishop. You can just deliver mate this way, and this is checkmate. But if, say, Spassky didn't take the bishop, let's say he played something like queen, not queen b2, but queen d2, then after bishop takes d1, queen takes d1, Fischer has queen takes e4 now. And he's threatening g2 again, so Spassky again has to play queen d2. If he plays queen f3, then just queen takes e1 wins. So queen d2, and after knight takes g2, it's simply lost now for Spassky. Fischer will just simply save his knight, or if you want to take this knight for some reason, then there's queen takes e1 check, queen f1 check, and now after captures on f1, and now it captures on f1. Here, the square of the pawn comes into play. Now, for any people who don't know what the square of the pawn is, the square of the pawn is basically where you draw a little square around the amount of places your pawn can move, and kind of, do it. So when the pawn comes to a4, you draw a square from a4 to a1, a1 to d1, d1 to d4, and then d4 connecting all the way to a4. And if the king can enter that square, or if he's already in the square, then the king can stop the pawn. However, Spassky's king is neither in the square, nor he can enter the square in the next move. So something like this will happen. King e2, a3, king d2, a2, king c2, and we see that Spassky is just one move short of stopping the pawn from queening. So that is why after Fischer's 27th move, bishop takes a4, Spassky decided to resign here, and quite a game for Fischer. I mean, he's equalized the score now, and now it's only a matter of who plays the better game. and then we can see who will finally win this 1972 World Chess Championship match. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions or feedback for me, please let me know in the comment section, and stay tuned for more chess.